Hi, I'm Dr. Tara Halliday, Specialist Imposter Syndrome Coach, and I'm going to talk to you today about what imposter syndrome is, what we know about it in 2023. We're going to start with what imposter syndrome is and the myths that have come up around it. We're going to look at an example of imposter syndrome, look at the symptoms of imposter syndrome, and look at the root cause of it. And then we'll get on to what you can do about it. So stay tuned right to the end. And if you want to see more about imposter syndrome and go into depth about exactly what's going on, then please like and subscribe to the channel. Firstly then, what is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is the secret feeling of being a fraud when you're not, and the fear that someone's going to find you out. And it affects 70% of high achievers at some point in their career. So the very first thing to know about imposter syndrome is that it's not just you. There's a lot of people feeling this way. A lot of people don't recognize it because most people keep it a secret. And what imposter syndrome is not, so here are the myths. Imposter syndrome is not being an actual fraud. It's not cheating when you're in your interviews or lying about your qualifications or experience. No, it's feeling like a fraud even though you have the experience and you have the qualifications. Everyone else sees you as a success. Although it's called imposter syndrome, that's just its common name. It's not an actual medical syndrome, which is good news because it doesn't need medication and it doesn't need psychotherapy. One of the biggest myths is that imposter syndrome is a women's issue, that it affects women more than men. And in fact, from 1978, the earliest research seemed to suggest that women got it more than men. But when in the 1990s, some research was done where the survey was completely confidential, absolutely anonymous, then the numbers came out equal. So what all the other studies have done is captured more of a society trend that men have, if you like, less permission or don't allow themselves to talk about what they perceive to be a weakness. But the numbers show women and men get it equally. And we'll see this when we get to the root cause, because the root cause also shows there's no gender issue in it at all. Imposter syndrome is also not low self-esteem and it's not low confidence. Now, it can feel like suddenly you've lost your confidence because suddenly you're starting to doubt yourself. But if it was low self-esteem, it would show up in every area of your life. And it doesn't. It often shows up in a very specific area of your life, usually the work context. So let me give you an example of imposter syndrome. Daniel was a lawyer in a small town law firm, and he did very well, and he got his name mentioned in the newspapers, and he was hailed as a great success. He got headhunted and invited down to join a really prestigious law firm in the big city. When he got there, the first thing that Daniel did was to look around at his peers, his new colleagues, and start to compare himself. And he found a lot of differences. He found that they were often second and third generation barristers, they'd had private education, and they were from a wealthy background. Now, this wasn't the case for Daniel. Daniel had grown up in quite a poor environment. He went to the local high school, the local university. He hadn't had the advantages that his colleagues had had. And so he felt that he was very different from them. He felt like he didn't quite belong. This is a key point of imposter syndrome, that sense of not feeling like you belong. And of course, he kept it a secret. He didn't tell anyone. He couldn't tell his family because he was the golden boy offered to the big city. They wouldn't have understood. So he didn't tell anyone. He kept it inside. And he felt it was just him. He couldn't see that anyone else, any of his peers, might be feeling the same way that he did. That maybe he didn't deserve to be there. Maybe he wasn't quite good enough. And he still did well. So when people gave him praise, he wouldn't take it in. He wouldn't just say, oh, thank you, and be pleased. He would bat it back. He would deflect it. And he would say, oh, it's just good timing. Oh, it wasn't me. Oh, I just got lucky. But he wasn't being modest. He genuinely felt that way. He genuinely felt that even though he was doing so well, it wasn't quite good enough. He over-prepared for all of his cases. That meant he spent far more time and effort working on than cases required. And so he worked very long hours, and that had an impact on his health, on his social life, and on his sleep as well. He started sleeping poorly. He woke up every morning wondering if he was going to get fired. He started hiding his opinions and didn't speak up as much as he could have. And all in all, he was overwhelmed, overstressed, overtired. And after 2 months with this law firm, he quit. He was exhausted. He was overwhelmed. He was burnt out. He spent 3 months in bed recovering from it, left not only the company, but the legal field entirely for 15 years. Finally, he came back as a legal assistant. And now he has a small one-man band law firm. And what he has is a lot of regret, because he was capable, he was competent, and the only thing that was stopping him from having what could have been a spectacular career, very satisfying, happy career, was this self-doubt. It was imposter syndrome. So the impact of imposter syndrome is significant. It's confusing, because on the one hand, you know you're capable and competent, you can do your work. And on the other hand, you're just not feeling it. And you've got these two beliefs just fighting each other. And it's very confusing as to why it happens. You keep it a secret because you think it's just you and that nobody else has this. It makes you feel isolated, that you feel like you don't belong. It's very distracting because you're continually wondering, are they going to find me out? Are they going to judge me? Are they going to fire me? It creates anxiety. It makes you more emotionally reactive. You're less calm. It can lead to poor decision making. And as we saw with Daniel, it can lead to burnout and people quitting their careers. It is a significant impact. Let's dive deeper now into the symptoms of imposter syndrome. We can divide the symptoms of imposter syndrome into 3 groups. Firstly, there's the imposter syndrome thoughts, that's self-doubt. Then there's the effect that it has on our physiology, on our nervous system. And finally, there's the imposter syndrome behaviors that we saw with Daniel, some of that comparing, over-preparing. All 3 of these groups of symptoms feed into each other. They're a cycle that drive each other round and round. So if we start with the imposter syndrome thoughts, the fundamental one is feeling that you're not good enough, or rather that you're not quite good enough. There's overthinking, the self-criticism, and the self-doubt. Now, all of this leads your brain to perceive that there is some kind of danger. The worry of all of this triggers your nervous system, and your nervous system then responds. Firstly, the nervous system reacts and goes into fight or flight or freeze. This is a natural response to a perceived danger, where you want to either defend yourself, run away from something, or hide from it so that you won't be caught by a predator, for example. It leads to poor sleep and tension, and then emotionally it creates anxiety and overwhelm. So when you have this level of stress in your body, in your nervous system, you naturally want to try and cope with it somehow. So it drives these coping behaviors. With imposter syndrome, we see perfectionism, that need, that anxiety if things aren't perfect. Over preparing, as we saw with Daniel, where he was doing more and more work, spending more and more time than the project needed. Comparing how everyone looks on the outside to how you're feeling on the inside. So it's not even comparing, apples to apples. Procrastinating is very common with imposter syndrome. Hiding your opinions and not speaking up, or not speaking up enough. Avoiding roles, avoiding opportunities. So you might turn down a promotion, you might not apply for a new job, because you don't feel that you're quite good enough or someone would actually hire you. And then finally, we have pushing through, which is where in the face of all this tension and all of these behaviors, you just grit your teeth, shut it down and try to just plow on through it and ignore all that stress and tension. And unfortunately, it doesn't work. Unfortunately, that stress and tension just doesn't go away by itself. So when you're doing these coping behaviors, none of them are helpful. None of them are comfortable. So what happens is that you then start judging yourself. or you beat yourself up or criticize yourself for it. And this then goes back to the imposter syndrome thinking. It feeds into the idea that maybe you're not quite good enough. So when you have all of these symptoms of imposter syndrome, they're holding you back and dragging you down. One of the common things to do is to ask why. Why do I have imposter syndrome? And most people conclude that, well, it must be me. There must be something wrong with me. Maybe it's my personality. And the fact is that imposter syndrome is not your personality. What you've just seen is a cycle of symptoms. And the cycle of symptoms have a driver. They have a root cause. And when you understand that, well, it takes the pressure off just a little bit. So the root cause of imposter syndrome, first, we can say it's unconscious. That means most people aren't aware of it. This is why people only see the symptoms and not the root cause. So it's an unconscious belief. And the belief is that my worth as a human being depends on what I do. That is, my worth and my actions are combined. Now, this belief was discovered back in the 1950s by Dr. Carl Rogers, one of the grandfathers of personal psychology. And at the time, he thought there was nothing people could do. Well, now we know that's not true. We know more about the brain, more about neuroscience. We know the things you can do. But the belief that drives imposter syndrome is the idea that my worth is conditional, dependent on what I do. So if I do something good, I am good. If I do something bad, I am bad. And this is what drives the engine, if you like, of those cycle of symptoms. So we have two choices. We can manage the symptoms, and there are ways to do this so that that cycle doesn't spin so fast, it doesn't affect you so much, it dials everything down. Alternatively, we can eliminate the root cause of imposter syndrome, which is this belief in conditional worth. I've put some links in the notes below about what you can do. The very first is a free quiz to understand how imposter syndrome impacts you. The second is an online course to give you the framework, give you the tools and some worksheets to help you manage your imposter syndrome. And the third is access to a one-to-one program that dives deep and eliminates imposter syndrome for good by changing the belief, a fundamental belief that drives all of it. The result, when you've completely got rid of imposter syndrome, is effortless confidence, limitless possibilities, and a deep self-acceptance. I hope you found this introduction useful. If you want to find out more about imposter syndrome, come back to the channel, like the video, subscribe, hit the bell, you know what to do, and I will see you all next time.